Mere conservatism.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. What do you say to that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I got a 2-year-old, I was just thinking, about to be 3, who might get cold. I'm just kidding. No, she's not. She's just 3. That's
right.
The thing. She's acting like a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
She would stop that, but maybe when she grows up a little bit.
If you're hearing this broadcast after the Christmas holiday, again, Happy New Year to you. Still a lot of things to look forward to.
Cleve, did you have kids that pushed boundaries?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think I'm thinking of one in particular that probably did that quite a bit for you.
Not my daughter Elizabeth. It was my first daughter.
The
Rebecca.
first one. I was thinking Rachel, the youngest.
No, Rebecca was our strong-willed child.
Okay.
They all got strong wills. My kids do, but my daughters do. They're not kids anymore. But Becky was strong-willed, titanium will.
I have a 3-year-old that is pushing every boundary possible.
Yeah.
At every opportunity. And then I have a 10-month-old who is like everything we don't want him to touch is like a magnet to him.
But of course.
He'll go straight for all the stuff that we're trying to get him to not notice.
Well, you ain't seen nothing yet. After 2 daughters, you wait and see what it's like really having a little boy running around the place. You haven't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, I need to get my first aid kit handy.
Yeah, for sure. That's David Perry, and I'm Cleve Walker, as we just kind of, look back. And in his case, he's looking immediately what happens when you're raising kids. My raising kids days is gone. But, wow. Our news topics, the things we're going to discuss right now, have an impact on our kids' generation and on their kids' generation and on their kids' generation, if the Lord tarries anyway, because, David, there are things happening that are just monumental about this nation's future. Let's start off with some good news. That helps. After months of negotiations, Manchin finally said no way could he support the social spending bill known as the Build Back Better Act. I hate that name.
Yeah.
He said that between ongoing inflation, the national debt, geopolitical unrest, and the COVID-19 pandemic, the bill that his fellow Democrats were pushing was just too much. Now, he did his best to try to make a deal with them. They wanted everything. Yeah. What do you say to that reaction?
Well, he's been saying no all along. That's why it hasn't been done. That's one reason it hasn't been done yet. By the way, Manchin is not the only senator, Democratic senator, who is not keen on voting for this. People don't talk very much about Kristen Sinema in Arizona, but she was also a no. But back to Manchin. He had been saying no for quite a while. That's why they were trying to negotiate this thing, whittle it down. They're trying to fudge the numbers to make it look smaller, which is what this latest iteration of the bill was. Down to 1.9 trillion, just a pittance, just a little teeny tiny 1.9. But what they did is they sunset all the spending for after like a year to make it look like it was only going to cost 1.9, but we all know that it was going to get continued.
It was just a financial parlor trick.
And Manchin called that out. He said, this is the same bill. This is the same thing. It has fake sunsets on these spending provisions, and I can't support it. So he finally, after, I think, negotiating with Democrats and trying to find a way forward, just put the nail in the coffin and said, just no, it's not going to happen. And I think that Manchin, he's a Democrat. He is a moderate Democrat, people say, but he's still a Democrat. I mean, he's going to be fine with spending money on I was going to say
stuff.
That. Yeah. But this is just a little too far.
Well, the thing is, again, and I'm glad you brought that out. Anything they propose, any amount now, and on top of already what's been passed, is too much, in our opinion. We've stated that before. But at least to restrain it a little bit, I just take that as good news. Plus, the way they handled Manchin and the way they're doing it now, I mean, the Democrats, the progressive wing, they are
destroying.
They are attacking
here's the thing. I don't know why they think they have sway over Manchin. The only possible thing they could do for him is give him a position in the bureaucracy, make him Secretary of State or something like that, because He's a senator from West Virginia.
Right.
That's the reddest state in the country.
Yeah.
He's a Democratic senator from the reddest state in the country. Trump won West Virginia like 60-20 or something like that. I mean, it was crazy. That only equals 80, but you get the point. He won it by a lot. Okay. There's no way that Manchin is keeping his job as a senator if he gives Joe Biden every far left liberal spending whatever that he wants. It's just never going to happen.
He wouldn't even stay and live in West Virginia, to me, after that, if he did that.
And actually, it kind of helps him in West Virginia that he was the one who killed this thing.
Sure he does.
Look, he's a Democrat. They voted in West Virginia for a Democrat. But he is, the Democrats, generally speaking, and Joe Biden especially, is not popular in West Virginia. And if Manchin is seen as rubber stamping Joe Biden, he's done.
Well, here's something else, David. The progressives, many of them, just lambasted the state of West Virginia, calling it backwards, and obviously, they're just hayseeds, that kind of stuff. So they are further showing, and this is to me one of the extra blessings out of what Manchin did. They're showing again that same elitist attitude that has caused more and more people to hate these guys like never before.
Out of one side of their mouth, they act like they care about the people of West Virginia. This would help them. This is important for the people of West Virginia. On the other side of their mouth, they're hayseeds and nuts. And look, you don't mess with people from West Virginia. I'm sorry, you don't. They will eat you, Cleve. They will do it. Okay. So I know I have friends from West Virginia, good friends, and it is they are an independently minded people. They are. They're not into this left-wing ideology stuff. The Ocasio-Cortezes in the bluest of blue New York and in the super-duper blue Minnesota where Ilhan Omar resides. And the part of the party, in other words, that Joe Biden is trying to please is alien to the entire state of West Virginia, Democrat or not. Yeah. And they were not going to be able to bully Manchin into this, unless they offered him some other high up position in the bureaucracy somewhere, and even then, I don't know if he's into that. And by the way, they're killing him now. They're saying all kinds of terrible things about him: racist, hates poor people, et cetera, et cetera. Pick your poison. They're saying it about him, and it's helping him.
Sure it is. They've given up. The progressives, I think, have given up on Manchin doing anything to really be on their side. So let me ask you a question, because there are a lot of Republicans, including McConnell, who are asking Manchin to go ahead and come over and become a Republican. And there are some on the progressive side that are telling him he needs to do that because we don't need him identify with us when he's not with us. What do you think Manchin would do? Do you think he would ever become a Republican? Because he, in their mind now, he, for all points and purposes, is. So what do you say?
If I were Manchin, I would not become a Republican.
Okay, and why?
Because he wields more influence outside of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
If he becomes a Republican, then he's just another Republican. And by the way, a liberal one.
Yeah.
Because let's not forget, he's a Democrat.
Right.
He's not he is not. He might be closer to Mitch McConnell than he is to what's a Democrat senator?
I don't know. I don't keep up with the Democrats.
To Joe Biden.
Okay.
He might be closer to Mitch McConnell than he is to Joe Biden right now.
Yeah.
Let's just say, but he's still a Democrat.
Right. And
he's no Ted Cruz. He's not like that kind of person. So I say all that to say, if I were him, I would probably become an independent. I do think that I would leave the Democratic Party.
That would make sense. And I agree with you. As an independent, he could still caucus with whatever party he wanted to.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have to do.
He stays on the outside.
Yeah.
He removes the D from his name, which isn't helping him in West Virginia. He doesn't just become yet another Republican senator who kind of loses his identity and his right now. Look, politically, if you're thinking about your career as a politician, which is, we kind of hate it when these guys think this way, but you're going to do that. Okay, you're going to yield more influence if you switch right now to being an independent than you would if you became a Republican. And I don't see a way he's going to be able to stay a Democrat. I don't see it.
It's going to be interesting, but again, that's a bit of good news. A bit of good news then topped with some silly news is this. The governor of Texas, has begun rebuilding part of the border wall. Mm-hmm. You know about that. And I think that's cool. I mean, it's not the whole wall. It's on Texas state, property. So he's doing it. And he actually approached the White House saying, okay, you get all that steel laying there from where President Trump started building the border wall. And it's just laying there. I forget how many millions of tons of it. And they didn't answer him. He said he got no response from them.
Did he want to use the steel?
Well,
Can I have it? Is that what he said?
Well, here's what he said. Here's what the White House has finally said, and it's not in response to the request by the governor of Texas. The Department of Homeland Security announcing that it will use border wall funds to close some of the unfinished gaps in the wall that former President Trump started. Biden shut down all construction, but now he says we're gonna fill in a few sections. Plus, they're going to use those funds for other activities as well, which is very suspicious to me. So he's doing that now because he's been put on the spot.
So Biden is building the wall now.
A portion of it, small portions of it, and portions that
he's still doing it
that don't impact the biggest part of the way. So my point is, he just needed cover because they put him on the spot. You got all this steel, and the money has been spent and allocated, and you're not doing anything with it. So he looks worse now than if they had not been brought up. So now he's spotting Texas governor, and he's making this gesture, and he doesn't really want to, but this is the way they operate.
Look, it's good.
Yeah.
Fine, good. Build the wall. He was wrong. He's been wrong. Now he's doing something right, even if he's doing it as a half measure. At least it's better than what he was doing before, which is nothing and making things much, much worse.
It also shows that he realizes, whether he wants to acknowledge it in public or not, that his tanking poll numbers, which are, by the way, just tanked more again in the latest polls coming out, that they literally have to do something other than the stark direction they've been taking. They got to do something.
Yeah, apparently Joe Biden has no floor when it comes to his approval ratings and his job performance numbers. They keep going down. And I was on Twitter the other day, and somebody said, this lefty said, Joe Biden must be doing a great job as president because conservatives can't stand him. And I was just like, just look at his approval numbers. It's a whole lot more than just conservatives that have a problem.
And even other Democrats are part of that disapproval number.
And if it was only conservatives that didn't like him and everybody else liked him, he'd be over 50%.
Well, let me tell you something. His numbers are so bad, and of course Kamala, his would-be replacement, are even worse, that this is why maybe your future governor, Stacey Abrams, well, of course she thinks she's your present governor.
Why would you even say it's Christmas time, man?
Well, she thinks she's your present governor in exile, but she has planned and she is championing this government takeover of the voting laws of every state that the Democrats put forward. She's now gotten way behind that, and so have others, because, David, I'm telling you, mark my words, they see this as their only chance to avoid the shellacking that would otherwise come.
Yeah, they need it.
This is important that we recognize what they're up to. I mean, you know what I'm saying? We cannot forget, if this voting reform thing gets passed, then it's lights out.
Well, it goes back to COVID, doesn't it?
Yes.
Because let's not forget that COVID set the stage and gave the left the excuse they needed to start to really change the voting regulations and the rules. So after the election, a lot of these states said, look, COVID has waned. We have treatments. We have vaccines. We're going to do away. We're going to make sure that a lot of these things that were put in place during COVID, that they don't continue, because we're not in emergency status anymore. Well, the Democrats say that's voter suppression.
Right.
So, in other words, the way we voted for years and years and years and years and years was fine then, and then COVID hit, and now if you go back to the way it was before COVID, it's voter suppression. Apparently,
that's why Omicron is their friend.
But
by the way,
again, that's where I'm going with this, because the COVID crisis continues.
Right,
we have a winter of death and destruction coming towards us.
According
says Joe
to
Biden.
President Biden,
they need COVID, or they need something, because they need an excuse to to change rules on the fly. They need these crises so that they can take control and do things that they want to do. And I think the elections are part of that.
It's the only way. I'm just telling you this. This is the only way they don't avoid an absolute shellacking in the midterms.
Yeah, well, and don't forget, I mean, Republicans made gains in a lot of places in the last election. They lost the presidency, but they didn't lose ground in a lot of places you would have thought they would have in a Democratic wave.
Here's something even scarier. You were talking about independents and people of that ilk. The latest polls are showing that Hispanic support, or I should say Hispanic being against the Democrat agenda is growing. And that's scaring the dickens out of them because they don't have time yet, although they're trying, by the way, to get the millions and millions and millions they imported over the southern border. They don't have time to get them voting rights yet. So any decrease in their traditional voting blocks, whether it's black minorities or Hispanics, again, this could be a huge shellacking. So the big battle, David, now, again, is them with this federal takeover of states' voting laws. And I actually believe that might be ruled unconstitutional, but their point is to go ahead and get it done. And we need to be on top of that.
Now implement it before they can mount challenges or whatever. I'm sure that they would love to do that. I hope that they can. There does need to be a lot of changes in elections on the state level.
Right.
I mean, some states did some here recently. There need to be more. I mean, there's a lot of issues with elections at the state level, the way they favor certain parties and the two-party system, and there's a lot of things you could do that I would be open to doing. The Democrats want to. They want to kind of.
I don't want Congress to do that. I don't want Congress to do that.
Well, from the federal level, absolutely not.
The states need to be doing.
Yeah,
yes. the states need to be doing, and that's the big thing. So we'll hope that happens. Now, by the way, you mentioned Omicron, and St. Fauci was on the air recently, basically indicating the same thing that Biden said, that this could be bad. Now, forget the fact that we've already found out it's the mildest form of COVID you could ever get.
Yes.
And literally, it's really a bad cold.
Yeah.
It's not even the heavy flu that many are experiencing. So,
in other words, you kind of want to get it.
Yeah.
Because, by the way, if you get it, you have antibodies and T-cell immunity and all that stuff that you get when you fight a virus off. And the chances of you becoming severely ill from Omicron are apparently very, very low.
Yes.
And guess what? It's extremely infectious. You know, when the original COVID came out, one of the talking points was how easy it is to catch it. It's very, very, very,
They talk about that all the time.
Delta was even more infectious. Well, Omicron is even more infectious than Delta. It's like 100 times easier to catch than the original.
Yeah, it is.
In other words, it is a cold that you're probably going to get. And even if you're vaccinated, there's a very high chance you're going to get it because, as we've been seeing for months now, there's so many breakthrough infections, if you want to call them that.
I don't even call them breakthrough anymore.
The vaccine isn't keeping you from getting COVID, especially Omicron. So I say all that to say, maybe it's good to get it and get it over with.
Well, let me tell you something. I actually believe that, to me, this is a blessing. That we have a form of this disease that is not as severe, like you said.
Right.
And at the same time, it leaves you with antibodies. Because let me tell you something. These guys, the progressives and Biden, they literally have to have this pandemic. And they look at Omicron as a way of continuing the protocols that helped them get elected in the first place. So I just thought I would bring that out. Now, another interesting thing. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot calling on the federal government for help in combating crime and violence in the Windy City. Now, Lightfoot, like several other Democrat-controlled areas around the country, have seen a major spike in crimes and violence. Some think it may correlate.
That's because Chicago's MAGA country, Cleve. Don't you know that?
Don't get me started there. But
thugs in white face and red hats walking around.
This is the biggest selling point, I believe, for GOP folks that we have in a long time. All of the major Democratic strongholds are beset with this. I mean, they are. The violence and the looting and the things are off the charts, and many of them is still saying, well, it's not because of defunding police. There are other factors involved.
Yeah.
Now,
Chicago could handle this themselves if they would. If they would do it right.
But they took a lot of money from their police department. And now she's calling on the federal government. And, David, I bring this up simply because of this. To me, this is the end game that the progressives had intended for this attack on the police. They want local police enforcement to be a thing of the past. They want a federalized police force because that is more easily controlled from the top. Mm-hmm. And so when I heard her say this, part of it says, yeah, we got to do something, and we need to do it now. Even Trump offered federal agents to help out the situation in Chicago, but they want that. Mm-hmm. They want it under a Democrat president, though. Okay, so but that's bad.
Yes, it's bad. We've talked for years on this program about the danger of federal police in having offices everywhere and doing what should be local police work.
And not answerable to the community, but answerable to the federal government.
You do not want federal police. This is a absolute red flag, red line as far as I'm concerned. You want your county sheriff handling the police efforts in your city. Of course, things work a little bit different in a city like Chicago. It's not a county thing, but it's a city thing. In other words, you want your local government. Okay, so where I live, we have a county sheriff that handles the police department, and that's who I want handling law enforcement. I do not want a federal force because the accountability, as you mentioned, isn't there. And we all know that the feds don't do anything right. Hardly.
Well, worse than that, the feds do literally what their taskmasters, and especially I'm talking about Democrat people, tell them to do. It's not a matter of what's best for the people that they're serving, but they have an agenda. Because let's face it, David, as we all know now, the FBI and the Justice Department, as they are currently constituted and operated, are under the thumb of a corrupt administration.
Yeah, they're corrupt. And Cleve, corrupt administration or not, the organizations in many cases themselves are corrupt.
Right. Unfortunately,
you can have a not corrupt administration come in, and you still have a bureaucracy in place. That's why the next president that comes in needs to fire probably about a third of the executive branch. And I'm not joking.
I believe you.
I mean, I think they need to. The next president that comes in needs to clean house, and I mean bloodbath. As far as jobs.
You just heard what somebody thought. Said that. Nobody getting shot.
It's going to be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Okay. I'm telling you, man, it's got to happen because it's the bureaucracy is absolutely corrupt. It's too big. There's not enough accountability. This is Congress's fault, by the way, because they have ceded so much power to the executive branch. The executive branch comes in and sets up these bureaucracies, and then they leave 4 years later, and the bureaucracy is still there. These lifetime appointments. Anthony Fauci's been around since the 80s, doing a terrible job with public health policy, and he's still there.
Yeah.
This has got to end.
Well, I actually would love to see everything become state and localized more so. Now, even like education, there's a push to push that further under federal control than it is already. And I think that's a huge bad move.
The opposite direction.
Right. It's one of the reasons we got some school districts around the nation wrestling with CRT and other practices, being indoctrinations coming in there. We need to bring everything back to the state and local level, with the exception of what the Constitution declares is the province of the federal government. The progressives, the Democrats right now, are all about control. And they know that if they lose this next election in the way that I think they will, if it's a fair election, this is a huge setback for their ages-long scheme at totalitarianism in this nation.
Yeah, I think they're going to get hit pretty hard. Yeah. I don't think there's really any way around it. And the way they're treating Manchin, it's counterproductive. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know what they're thinking.
It's just rage. I mean, to me, it's outrage. They can't help themselves. AOC and the squad and they have to speak these outrageous things because they're like spoiled brats that literally would say anything that comes in their mind.
It's funny to me because I wonder if they know how wrong they are, or if they are really in such a bubble that they think that everybody wants what they want in
They're in a
their
bubble.
super duper blue district.
They're in a bubble.
I mean, and Nancy Pelosi was famous for saying that this glass of water could get elected in some of these districts with a D next to its name. And that's Ocasio-Cortez's district that she's talking about. And that's Ilhan Omar's district that she's talking about.
Right.
You can elect a ham sandwich.
Well, Pelosi even said recently she didn't know why there was this uptick in crime and violence. She said it's got to stop, but she doesn't know why all of a sudden it's happening. You know, so when I hear things like that, that's when I throw my shoe at the television screen. I don't do that very often because it's too expensive. But you know, so literally, again, I'll say this: good things are happening. The GOP and the conservatives are poised for a great midterms. The thing to work against, to pray about, again, is to understand that people like Stacey Abrams, they see the handwriting on the wall, so they're going for a federal government takeover of the election system. And they will use the Omicron. I guarantee you that's going to be their main driving point. It's still not safe to do things like we did before.
And Republicans need to go for the jugular here.
Yeah.
We need to be
don't play nice.
Exactly. We need to be extremely careful and extremely smart, but aggressive. Yeah. This is not a time to just run the ball. As you would say in football, you got a big lead or something like that, and just don't run the clock out.
No.
This is not time to run the clock out.
Go for the jugular.
Move the ball. Score some touchdowns. Push, because these people are not going to let up. And you have a golden opportunity here to really expose the left agenda and their mindset and their worldview and then defeat them.
Yeah. That's the only way to deal with it. You cannot compromise with them. It doesn't work that way. David, great discussion as always, and folks can hear it anytime they want.
Yeah, check it out on Apple Podcasts, the app on your iPhone, or you can go to YouTube, search for MereCon Media. You can find us there or on Facebook.
And remember, even though things are looking good, as David just said, we got to keep pressing in. Can't stop now. I'm Cleve Walker, and that was David Perry. This has been Mere Conservatism. Again, Happy New Year to you. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your holidays.